Hey, Catholic Divas, welcome to the podcast and welcome to August. First of all, I want to apologize. We have been having some technical difficulties with my recording. And so I know the past few episodes have been very muffled and in a tunnel and very difficult to hear. We're working on it. But in the meantime, I want to exhort you to come on in. We're going to be talking all things breastfeeding this month with Mama Vicki as the lactation consultant and La Leche League leader, as it is National Breastfeeding Month. Hey, this is Mama Jane.
And this is Mama Vicki. Welcome to the Cycles and Sanctity podcast.
I'm a Billings ovulation method instructor and a certified Catholic mindset coach.
And I'm a labor and delivery nurse, an IBCLC, and a La Leche League leader.
We're here to share with you the beauty and the pain of your cycles.
Have you considered honoring your cycle throughout the journey of your womanhood?
Have you ever considered your cycle as a tool towards your holiness?
Well, sisters, it is. We're excited to walk this journey with you.
So go grab your favorite journal and pen and your hot beverage, and let's do this. Well, welcome back, Catholic Divas. We are excited that it is August. This is Mama Vicki's month of birth. We love it. Her birthday's August 8th.
9th.
Oh, that's the
9th. It's always the 9th.
Okay. Anyway, this series, we are going to be talking about breastfeeding. And one of the reasons why I asked Mama Vicki to be my business partner and my co-host for this podcast is that I see the connection with our cycle. And we've talked about this a little bit before in other podcasts where we were talking about the pre-puberty young girl and the puberty girl when she starts her first menarche, is that as her body's developing, it's not just her reproductive system that is being activated. Her hips are getting wider, her breasts are starting to grow. And breasts are an indicator of what a woman is. And they have a specific purpose, just like our heart has a purpose, just like our eyes have a purpose. And so, Mama Vicki, I just want to give it over to you. This is going to be fabulous because I love listening to you as an IBCLC, as a La Leche League leader for over 30 years now. So tell us, what do you love about breastfeeding?
Y'all, I'm so excited to be here. August is my favorite month for lots of reasons, but this is our first week of August, and it is World Breastfeeding Week. And in America, August is National Breastfeeding Month. So this is just right in my wheelhouse. You guys, here on Cycles and Sanctity, we are going to treat breastfeeding as the norm. Our bodies were made to birth and our bodies were made to breastfeed. There's a lot of information where take what you like and leave the rest type situation, but here we want to talk positively and remind you that breastfeeding is the way babies were meant to be fed. And breastfeeding is much more than just feeding your baby. So many messages are given to mothers that formula is fine, or just exclusive pumping is fine, or just providing breast milk in general is the best. And I'm not slamming these methods, but we're just talking about the normal cycle of life. And that includes breastfeeding, which we're built to do. Breastfeeding is a relationship. It is not just giving your baby breast milk. It is getting to know your baby, getting to know yourself, getting to learn to read your child's signals, getting to know how you respond. And the actual physical act of the skin to skin and breastfeeding your baby literally rewires your brain even. So instead of having a fight or flight response when your baby cries, you have a, oh, I want to take care of this comforting response. I could go on and on about the benefits, but today we're covering getting ready to breastfeed. Let's say you've never breastfed before. It's your first time, just found out you're pregnant. And honestly, a lot of us are just trying to figure out what we're going to do about being pregnant. Like, what does this journey look like? And our professionals, even midwives, many midwives, breastfeeding, it just isn't taught to medical professionals, just isn't. The ones that pursue it have a personal interest in it and pursue it. So my heart is definitely a La Leche League leader. I do have my IBCLC credentialing, but I very much come to you ladies from a mother's heart. Breastfeeding just is so fulfilling. And again, it is a relationship, and no relationship is without frustrations, yet also celebrations. So just because we are called to do something and breastfeeding is, quote, normal, it doesn't mean it's easy. There's a lot of things in life we have to tackle that aren't easy, but that doesn't mean we don't do them.
Yeah, like marriage, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's probably the hardest, one of the hardest relationships that we have. And you're right, it's not always easy. So yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. So this month, we're just going to support breastfeeding. I like to start out with going, a lot of us don't even look at our breasts, to be honest. We know we have them. We try to find the bras that fit them, try to find the swimsuits that fit them, try to find the shirts that fit them. And and we don't really look at them and think of them in a breastfeeding manner. So, mamas, step one, get to know your body in the way that you get to prepare for mothering. I mean, you find out you're pregnant, well, you start to get ready. You get car seats and you have baby showers and you acquire the things you think you're going to need to raise your child. And one of them is you probably should check out how you're going to feed them. And that alone can head off difficulties.
Yeah, I want to add, as the Catholic coach, a really, really good beneficial activity for you to do is do some journaling on
Mm,
your own thoughts about your breasts. I have had clients
mhm.
where they've been intimidated because of their own body image.
Yeah.
They're afraid that they're not going to be able to breastfeed because their breasts are too small, or they're not going to be able to breastfeed because their breasts are too big, or whatever. But the other aspect of it I want to invite you to is, quote unquote, we've talked about manuals. You can look the episode up on manuals. Manuals are things that we've been given ideas or rules of how to live our life. And this is a real good time if you're pregnant on really journaling on what were the manuals that were given to me about breastfeeding or not breastfeeding, and who were they given to me from. And the same thing I want to kind of invite you, if you're open to this, is also with your husband, because
Hmm.
that was our personal experience. Like with my firstborn, I was in the army. I didn't have the support, so I didn't breastfeed very long. But with my second one, I did. And my husband had such an aversion of me breastfeeding in public. He understood that it was a benefit, but the idea of me possibly exposing my breasts out in public, it just really set him over the edge because unfortunately we have this mindset. And again, this is why I want to encourage you on what are your thoughts about breasts? Where's that coming from? Like, is breasts the only, like the booty dance and that's what I would have to tell them like that. That was kind of like one of the things, like, I'm not doing you know, I'm feeding your child.
I just have to interrupt here because I have
Yes.
such a funny memory. I actually don't even remember where we went, but it was time to feed the babies.
Yep.
We had John and Russell,
Yep.
and we sat down on a bench to breastfeed, and Steve leaped up and
Yep.
fist starred, like five-starred his body in front of you. And I was like, no one even knew what we were doing until homeboy jumped up and flailed about. It was hilarious. But ladies, this is a really good point. This is the time you find out you're pregnant. Immediately, we're also going to talk about how we're going to feed our kid and really get to know what your husband, they have their own fears that we forget that they're vested in this. And y'all, statistically, husband support is one of the number one things. Mother support from like the mother's mother or the father's, grandma's support, and partner support, aka husband, is instrumental in breastfeeding
Mhm.
success. So Steve was protecting it. I mean, really, it was kind of cute that he wanted to be like, protect this house and even protecting me. Like, I've got these ladies, they're feeding. Everybody back off. I'm here for it.
And with our firstborn, my mother-in-law, who didn't breastfeed just because of the era, and again, it was the thought, right? The
Hmm.
thought during her generation was you only breastfed if you were poor. And so if I could afford formula, then that's what I did. But she made the comment when she visited, Patricia was only a week old. When I used to breastfeed, Steve would come over, he'd bring me my water, he'd bring me my snack, and he would come and sit right next to me and he would put his arm around me. So he does have that very
Hmm.
protective, guarding, and that was his way of serving me.
Hmm.
And she, again, these are questions that you kind of need to ask and start having these conversations. Because my mother-in-law was very uncomfortable with me breastfeeding, and Mimi was extremely uncomfortable with us breastfeeding. And we have that story where both of us were not allowed to bring our babies. Gosh, how old were our babies when my dad died?
Like 6 to 8
No,
months, something like that. Less
not,
than that. Whatever, November to February for you and September to February for me.
yeah. So 4 months, and we were not allowed to bring our nursing children to a funeral, and we had to make those raised anyway.
So of that story, I was flying home. I had to fly home from Washington, D.C. to Kansas. And here I have this baby. And He went on a nursing strike after that. He refused to nurse. And so this is the thing, because y'all, babies under a year don't quit nursing. And I was on the plane and this baby screamed from DC to St. Paul. It was awful. I was that mom. Nothing I could do. I acted like he'd never seen a breast before. I was leaking. I was just so embarrassed. So we landed in St. Paul and they had to de-ice the wings to go to Kansas City. And this older gentleman came up and he said, "Hey, I just want to tell you you're doing a great job. Hang in there." And that just made all the difference in the world. And then after that, I relaxed and lo and behold, this kid latched on after
Wow.
like 2 days of refusing. So it's just,
Wow.
I kind of am jumping ahead of myself because this is talking about just getting started. Just you've never breastfed. And exactly this. Who have you talked to? Every family has their opinions, and you'll find that everybody has their opinions. As soon as people find out you're pregnant, they just have all the information in the world to give you. And it's very hard to discern what is good for you and what isn't. And I'm not here to speak for the Leche League, but they do believe this. And y'all, every mother knows their own child. You spend 10 months growing this baby and you know them. I mean, and
Mhm.
God gave this baby to you. I mean, you and
Right.
your husband made this baby. This baby is yours. So even before you have this baby, you know what's right for you. And that changes. I mean, breastfeeding, again, it's a relationship. I always call it like a dance. It's a dance and you have to learn the steps. And sometimes they change, the music changes, the tempo changes. So you have to switch up. And usually it's like musical chairs. There's not a indicator.
Right. Right.
So definitely, y'all, you need to get to know your body because some of us have, we call it affectionately, some of us have perfect equipment. Our breasts are average size, the nipples are averted, they are ready to go. Like, here we are. And that is not by any means everybody. So the size of your breast doesn't matter. Every mother has the potential to breastfeed. But you do need to know if you have flat nipples, if you have inverted nipples, because there are things you can do before you have the baby. Because as a labor and delivery nurse, when I get you in the hospital and you had no idea, like, I don't know, I haven't even looked at my boobs, and all of a sudden we have extremely inverted nipples, that is going to cause some extra work, some extra dedication. And if you haven't really thought about breastfeeding, except, well, I was told it's the best, so I guess I should do it, then you're on rocky ground to start with.
Mhm.
Because as a first time mom, we have doubts. We don't know. We haven't done it. And so everybody's like, oh my goodness, am I going to have enough milk? And then if
Right.
you have a baby in that first latching and he or she struggles to latch because you have flat or inverted nipples and nobody ever told you, then you already are feeling, oh no, what if I can't do this?
Mhm.
And on another note, I cannot encourage enough mamas to take a class in birth and breastfeeding. You can always hit us up on the Facebook page. Mama Jane and I we support the more natural side of the house. And honestly, the more natural your birth is, the more natural proceeds to breastfeeding. A lot of interventions to breastfeeding is interventions in birth. So a lot of us are going to come to this experience already with some obstacles
Mhm.
placed in our way. And so these can all be overcome. But often I find in the medical field, mamas are told you need to breastfeed, and then that's where it ends. Like finding the postpartum support is difficult. And if it's your first baby, first of all, labor is exhausting. Your entire body's worn out. You're worn slick. When you go home, or even if you are home, however it is you have your baby, that first week, you need to focus on resting and feeding your baby. And it's hard pressed in America to find that unconditional support.
Yeah.
So lining
Exactly.
that up before you have your baby, step
Mhm.
one.
Yes, absolutely. That is such good advice, Vicky. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you're here. All right.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and just between Mama Jane and I, we have had so many, so many experiences. That's what I'm telling you. If you breastfeed one baby for 1 year, you're going to have a wealth of knowledge under your belt that you can share with the next mama. I had a
Mm.
beautiful experience with my daughter-in-law at my last Leche League meeting. She was able to come and she's had her second baby now. And to see the confidence in her nursing baby number two, and to see her helping the two other mamas that were there and just giving her just her experience, not like, oh, I know this, I'm right, but like, oh my gosh, girl, I felt the same way. And that's why I also very much encourage finding that support group before you have your baby, because it's a lot. Getting your new baby out of the house, leaving the house with a
Mhm.
baby first time, it's not a simple task.
No, it isn't. It
And
isn't.
so if you don't know and you're worried if your baby's getting enough milk and you're engorged and you're trying to overcome difficulties, and now you're going to pile on, I have to find this meeting, find where it's at, if there is one, that's a lot to take on. So this is just the down and dirty of how to prevent complications, because there's
Mhm.
something about mom to mom support. That's why Mama Jane and I are doing this podcast, because we know the benefit of mom to mom support. Another mom that's been there, done that can just give you so much comfort.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if we haven't had the same experience, just the fact that somebody's almost like holding your hand, right? Like it's part of the, I'm in a different organization and their philosophy is master and apprenticeship. And it doesn't have to be like master, like I know everything. It just means that you're just two steps ahead of the next person. And
Yes.
here, come follow me. I've done this much. And that's one of the things that attracted me with La Leche League way back when I applied to be a leader was that one of the requirements is you had to have breastfed for
You,
a year. And so, because you have experienced that, you can at least understand what this woman is going through, whether it's the same experience or not. At least you have another woman that is breastfed. Like I said, like my mother in law, she couldn't really help me because she had never breastfed herself. And so, while she was able to support in other ways, she couldn't support me in that way.
absolutely. And a lot of us have that. I mean, so many moms I've served, are like, oh, well, my mom couldn't breastfeed. And I can't tell you how many times I have a grandma in the room supporting her daughter having a baby. And it's like, well, give me all the reasons they couldn't breastfeed. And it breaks my heart because these women could have breastfed. They just didn't have the support. So
Right.
step one, line that support up and know that breastfeeding's normal, that this is the way God made you. So it's
Yes.
meant to be. And again, like I said, I'm not saying don't hear me as though Mama Vicky's over there saying it's so simple. It isn't. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I had the luck of my oldest, just he just latched on. I had a great nurse. She came in, put the kid on the boob, and off we went. And then I just kept doing it because it worked. And I did have the benefit of having Mama Jane on my mom's side and another aunt on my dad's side that I guess I observed them
Yeah.
breastfeeding, but it wasn't really talked about, but at least I'd seen it.
Right.
And
And
and some of us, if you've never even seen it, like all your family bottle fed, it's an unknown. So
that's one of the reasons why I love having an actual physical meeting of a La Leche League and encouraging pregnant moms to go beforehand because you're right.
absolutely.
While I had seen your mom and other sisters in laws breastfeed, I had never seen a woman breastfeed a toddler. And
Right.
that was a mind expansion for me of like, oh, wow, wait a minute, you breastfeed longer? And again, what are you comfortable with and what's possible? And just another funny story about we're going to love on Steve today. Steve, we love you. Going back to those first days, right? Like hiding
Hmm.
and everything. But then with the last one with James, and I had my double pulmonary embolism, they had to take the baby home. So he was on formula for about 12 hours until they were able to get me a pump. And then I had to pump and dump just because of some of the procedures. So we
Get to me
had
on that before you pump and dump, family. Go ahead.
yes. Anyway, yes, exactly. I mean, I was fighting for my life. Anyway, so we had some friends. Now, again, these are extreme cases, and this might be mind-boggling of like, I've never heard of this, but we had some friends that pumped for me, and then another friend went and got the breast milk. So it wasn't my breast milk, but it was breast milk, and he took that. And so one of my sister-in-laws, Steve, he was picking her up from the airport and he was explaining this. He told me the story later and he said, she kind of had an aversion, like, ew, you're giving someone else's breast milk. And he said, and I just kind of looked at her and said, well, you're drinking some cow's milk. Like, this is what wet nursing was 100 years ago. And I remember when he came to the hospital and shared that story with me, I was like, wow, you get a gold star for being the breastfeeding dad. Like
Hmm.
the way he was able to just very simply explain it, like, "This is just the way it is, like, this is the best for a child."
Well, mamas, you are definitely going to see your husbands grow because they definitely learn that no matter what their baseline came from. I mean, maybe you're lucky and you come. Anyone that marries my boys, they know about breastfeeding. Matter of fact, I have a story about my second oldest kid. He was in the army and he had a buddy that had a wife and they had a baby. And he called me up and he said, "Mom, they're feeding their baby with a bottle." I said, yes, yes, people do this, but they just, he was number two. I have eight. He just saw me breastfeed all those years and just didn't even think that. I mean, he just literally was like, why would they do that? Not an accusatory way, but just like, I haven't seen this before.
Right.
So I'm just going to circle back just on some of the initial questions. This is for mamas that just haven't done it. The two biggest questions: do I have enough milk? And how do I know, is my baby getting enough? And you guys, we send you to the pediatrician and we have this statistic of the baby can't lose more than 10% the first few days. And this just sends mamas to the edge. First, let me tell you guys, some babies have to be the 10%. So if your baby's that baby that they come in, oh, he's down 10%, this is not time to panic. This is time to put your baby to the breast, to literally have people bring you food and water, and you get skin to skin with your baby and breastfeed, breastfeed, breastfeed on demand. We also give you guidelines like, oh, go home and breastfeed every 2 to 3 hours. We have to put a parameter on it somewhere. We got to give you some general guideline, but I have yet to meet a baby that goes home and breastfeeds every 2 to 3 hours. It's usually every 4 minutes, or you have to wake them up, or they will go 5 hours, and all things in between. The point is, in these very early days, just like women that come from farming communities, they're lucky that they see animals born, and the process of breastfeeding just goes naturally in. I mean, we're human, we are a type of animal, and it is natural in those first weeks to just breastfeed. That's your job. I tell mamas all the time, you kept this baby alive in your belly for 10 months, and now they're outside and a lot more work, but it is you. Your breast milk is their sustainment.
Mm.
We're just outside now, which adds a lot of layers of multitasking.
Yeah, and one of those things I want to remind everyone is that breast milk is so perfect. Like, we don't have to worry about the component of the breast milk.
The temperature, where it came
Yes,
from, the preparation,
the
it's ready to go.
nutrition. I mean, it is so amazing if you do your research on how a mother's milk is made for that specific child at that specific
Absolutely.
time when there's more fat, there's more. I'm always fascinated by the science of what they
Absolutely.
recognize. Your
Yeah.
body knows your child.
Hmm. I mean, that's further down the road. The benefits of breastfeeding we'll cover later in the month, but there's so many we could just go on and on and on. Honestly, the way we need to present this is the risk of formula feeding. I mean, what are the
Mhm,
risks? And again, this is a whole nother topic. There are instances where that is necessary. So
mhm.
this is not a campaign against formula, but we're talking about, as we do on Cycles and Sanctity, the normal evolution of our bodies, what God ordained us and built us to be.
Yes,
So,
the true purposes of
mhm.
our body.
So how do you know your baby's getting enough? If he's having dirty and wet diapers, wet and dirty diapers, what goes in must come out. So if they're having wet and dirty diapers, you're doing all right. And the next big question is, where do you go? Let's say you go to the hospital and you have this baby and you come home, and it kind of was going okay in the hospital, and everything kind of crashes down around you. It's week 2 and your baby's fussy and you're having pain, or where do I get help? The thing is, I came across a chart in my beloved book, The Womanly Art of Breastfeeding. And honestly, La Leche League is a very reliable source. La Leche League leaders are not medically trained. You are trained off your experience as a mother, and then you go through a process talking with other experienced leaders of communication skills, and we read books and stuff. So we're not claiming to be IBCLCs, but been there, done that. Like, that's why they want you to have experience of a year, because a year gives you chances to experience different complications, plug ducts, nursing strikes, the complications of chasing other kids or meeting other obligations while breastfeeding. And unfortunately, there's just so many obstetricians, they don't get educated on breastfeeding in school. They go to school for all those years. They know that breastfeeding is a thing, but they don't get educated on how to help.
Mhm.
Often, even midwives don't get, I mean, a lot of midwives do know, but if you're a certified nurse midwife, it's not the same as a lay midwife. A lay midwife usually does know about breastfeeding, but a certified nurse midwife, they don't necessarily have to ever have even breastfed. So your obstetricians, your labor and delivery nurses, your postpartum nurses, your certified nurse midwives, they may not have ever breastfed themselves. They may have literally, moms have breast, they should breastfeed. If it goes bad, here's a nipple shield. And if that doesn't work, here's formula. So unfortunately, when we go to seek help, it is frustrating because we're not given the help we need. So again, I go back to say, we got to set that help up before we have a baby in our arms.
So let me just kind of clarify, like, would that be a really good question as a woman is progressing in her pregnancy and thinking about breastfeeding and wanting to breastfeed? I mean, that would be probably a really good question to ask her medical professionals. Just
100%.
what are your experience of breastfeeding? What are your even opinions of breastfeeding? Because I've had that where there is a bit of a pushback. I mean, that was the case definitely in the surgical recovery ward when I
For
was
sure.
recovering
For
from a
sure.
thing. They didn't have anything, and they really were. Thanks be to God, I did have the support, and I knew who to call so that we could make it, and I could breastfeed and keep the baby there and all those things. But that is a really good question. And it really, I just want to remind people that this gives the power back to you. This
Hmm.
is your pregnancy. This is your birthing experience. This is your family. This is the way you and your husband want to raise your children and provide the support and love that you are requiring. And so that is a very good question to ask the medical professional, whether it's an OBGYN or a midwife, or like, what is your experience about breastfeeding? What is your
Definitely. I
philosophy?
definitely recommend that. And you guys, if you go and you get your appointment with your provider and you feel like you're getting pushback or you're not getting the support, you can change providers. A lot of us women don't even know we have that power. We're told, oh, go to Dr. Jones. You go to Dr. Jones, you guys don't hit it off for whatever reason. And now you're like, oh my gosh, now your pregnancy is filled with trepidation, fear, frustration. And that is not the way you want to move forward. So, mamas, I cannot tell you enough. And if you're scared to do that, reach out to friends. And again, your local Alicia League is a great way to just, a lot of times they have lists of breastfeeding friendly providers and more holistic type approaches to pregnancy and breastfeeding. So I'm hoping this reaches mamas or women that know mamas to give as many women as we can the empowerment before we try to breastfeed.
Yes.
But if not, you can still find it.
And I mean, you are the perfect resource. And again, please, we want to invite you to our Facebook group page.
Absolutely.
You can reach out to her on Instagram. We can include a link for a discovery call to ask
Yes.
questions for her. She is such a wealth of knowledge. I just want to just pour into you. I mean, you have helped so many women. And that's really what it is that just finding the right support, but also finding the women that, again, giving the information, helping you find the information, and helping you understand who you are as a woman
Mm,
and honoring that.
absolutely.
That's the best thing that you do is you honor women for where they're at and what they want to choose for their life and things. So
Thank
that's
you.
awesome.
And again, I'm not villainizing providers that don't know about breastfeeding. Their journey does not provide it to them either. So many, many providers don't even know they should look into it. And so, you guys have us. So now you know.
That's right.
Another thing I think new moms worry about is sleeping. A lot of moms
Mhm.
think that if they breastfeed, they're never going to sleep. I think Mama Jane and I can both vouch you're not going to sleep with a new baby. Doesn't matter how you feed. I mean, you are going to sleep. Okay. You are going to sleep, but it is not going to look like the 8 hours of sleep that we
Yes.
think. It is not going to look like I'm going to go to bed at 10 and I'm going to get up at 6 or however. Your sleep like that is not a thing for the first year of life because babies are not meant to sleep like that.
Yeah,
However, formula fed or breastfed,
that's
babies
right.
are not meant to sleep in that kind of increment. If you get 4 hours after the first month, rejoice. A 4 hour like chunk in the nighttime. Because a lot of times they do like to sleep in the day because they usually slept in the day because you're up and moving around, you rock them to sleep in your belly. And then, when do you feel them at night? They're kicking as you try to sleep. So
Mhm.
they're set up as nocturnal when they get here.
Right. And one of those really good recommendations is sleep when your baby sleeps. And
Absolutely.
that can be a difficult thing to letting go. I remember
Hmm.
wanting to do all the things because the baby's finally asleep. And then
Yes.
I had to tell myself, I had to give myself permission. No, you need to go lay down with that baby or
This is where our phlegmatics and our melancholics shine. Breastfeeding. They're like, I am on this all day long. I will sit and breastfeed or lay and breastfeed. This is my jam. It's us choleric and sanguines that need to be like, whoo, because yes, we do. We're like, baby, sleep. Now I got to do all 10,000 things. I know there's an old saying, oh, it's like basically I'm rocking my babies and babies don't keep.
mm,
And that is so true, y'all. I remember in a Little League meeting one time, a season leader used a yardstick and they said, even if you nursed for 4 years, which that's outside of the norm, but even if you nursed for 4 years, look at this yardstick of your life. It is
yeah.
so small of a time. And that newborn time goes in a flash. It will not feel like a flash when you're in it. I like to tease and say breastfeeding hours are like dog years. 2 in the morning as a breastfeeding mom is not 2 in the morning as a college kid in the club.
Yeah.
It's two very different 2 a.m.s.
That's right. That's
So,
right. Oh my
ladies, in
goodness.
my day, I suggested turn the alarm clock around, but y'all turn those phones over. Do not look at the time because you
Yes.
you need to meet your baby's needs when you need to meet your baby's needs. And this is a time I want to address. How does dad help? Everyone's like, well, what's dad going to do? Dad has a million things he can do. You feed the baby, he provides you. I always tease my people. I say, You feed and water the baby, dad feeds and waters you.
That's right.
He's also the keeper of the gate.
Yeah.
So many people want to come visit you. I mean, everybody wants to see the new baby. And you guys, this is where postpartum depression sits in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. Because after the first week, new babies, somebody else is having a new baby. Like the charm is lost, the people have come, they brought the balloons, and now here you are, still healing, still trying to learn how to be a new mom, still trying to figure out breastfeeding. Sometimes this journey is lonely. Honestly, that's why I went to Lilicha League. I had gone to a WIC appointment and I saw the flyer and I thought, wow, a group for breastfeeding moms? How can this be? I think I'm the only one. Because even at WIC, so many moms came to get their formula. And I would say, I don't need your formula vouchers. I'm breastfeeding.
Right.
And so this is what I'm saying. There's just the journey, as we've talked before, of motherhood is up and down, and that breastfeeding is no different. But breastfeeding a newborn baby has only 3 demands: warmth in the arms of their mother, food from her breast, and security in the knowledge of her presence. And breastfeeding provides all 3.
Will you slow down and say that again? That is so powerful.
It is. The newborn baby has only 3 demands. They are warmth in the arms of his mother, food from her breasts, and security in the knowledge of her presence. Breastfeeding satisfies all 3.
That right there, I mean, psychologically, and I've done tons and tons of research on it, of the security.
Absolutely. The trust.
The trust.
How to build trust. I mean, a lot of us in our generation do have trust issues because our mothers were told, bottle feed and put that baby in the room and let her cry herself to sleep.
Yes.
I mean, don't coddle your baby. Don't coddle. That baby will be spoiled if you keep holding him. Mamas, you cannot spoil a baby by loving, feeding, and holding them.
That's right.
You just can't. I think all the time we spend so much money on the gender reveal, on the layette, on the nursery room choices, the decor, the best car seats, the best strollers, the best baby carriers, the best play and pack and plays. And breastfeeding is truly the biggest gift you can give to your baby, emotionally, physically, psychologically. It is truly the biggest gift. So I can't recommend enough a sling, a baby wearing apparatus. There's a lot of those. We could do 16 podcasts on the beauties of baby wearing and the different ways to do it. That's another suggestion. There are groups out there that are literally baby wearing groups, and they can show you different ways of slings. And then that's another thing you have to try on. I mean, again, all these things I'm suggesting, and Mom and Jane and I are saying, that's why going and talking to other mothers, you can hear their experiences. And one mom will swear by one sling and one mom will swear by another. One mom swears by a certain kind of breastfeeding hold and another mom swears by another. And we all have different body shapes. Our babies are different sizes. And so you've got to take the information at hand and then tweak it to work for you. And the thing is, in this day and age, there's just so much information. So here at Cycles and Sanctity, we really just want to let you know we're here for you to give you the best leg up of accurate information on the normal process of breastfeeding and what God has called you to do.
I'm so excited for this month. This is going to be awesome. I mean, we've gotten tons and tons of information just in this first podcast. So again, ladies, reach out to us, share it with your friends that are thinking about getting pregnant or having difficulty with breastfeeding. Mama Vicki is your support team. We are on your team. We are here to support you in your journey of your womanhood. And we're just going to close with our scripture. It's going to be a little bit of a different scripture. Mama Vicki, do you want to take that? Because believe it or not, breastfeeding is actually mentioned in the Bible, people.
It's honestly mentioned quite a few times, and every time it is honored. And every verse that I have found, it is honored, and it's referred that God has given this to the woman who's given it to the baby to get the mother and the baby closer to him.
Yeah.
So Psalm 22 verse 9 says, "Yet you brought me out of the womb. You made me trust in you, even at my mother's breast."
Amen.
Short and simple.
Yes. Amen. Well, we will see you next time. We're going to continue this journey. And one more thing, we want to invite you to, if you have questions about breastfeeding, if you've had difficulties, please come and share, come and ask those questions at the Facebook group page. That is a sacred space. And who knows, we may have some of those questions addressed during the
Absolutely.
episode.
I would love that. Please reach out, and I would love to make this month about our mamas and their questions about breastfeeding, whether you've never done it or you've breastfed 10 kids yourself.
We hope you really enjoyed this podcast episode today. And we just want to remind you to join us over at the Facebook group, Cycles and Sanctity. This is where we're going to have the continuing conversations and just get to know you all. So come on over into Facebook.